It was just another evening in the city, streetlights flickering as a sleek, black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided through the quiet neighborhood. Inside, Marcus Carter gripped the leather steering wheel, his fingers adorned with a simple yet elegant Rolex. He had just left a late business meeting, the weight of the day sitting heavy on his shoulders. But as he approached a red light, he noticed the glare of flashing blue and red lights in his rearview mirror. Police cruiser. A deep sigh left his lips. He had done nothing wrong. He was driving the speed limit, his seatbelt was on, and his paperwork was flawless. And yet, the sirens wailed, forcing him to pull over. The officer approached, his boots crunching against the pavement, his hand resting firmly on his holster. He was tall, muscular, and his name tag read Officer Daniels. Marcus rolled down his window, keeping his hands on the wheel. "Good evening, officer. Is there a problem?" Daniels didn't answer immediately. Instead, his eyes scanned the car's pristine interior, the custom leather seats, the dashboard glowing with high-tech displays. His gaze snapped back to Marcus. "License and registration." Marcus nodded, moving slowly, reaching for his wallet. As he did, he could feel Daniel's stare drilling into him, as if trying to uncover something that wasn't there. "You own this car?" Daniel's voice was laced with suspicion. Marcus handed over the documents, keeping his face calm. "Yes, sir. Everything is in order." Daniels barely glanced at them before stepping back. "Stay in the vehicle." Walking to his cruiser, Daniels radioed in. "Dispatch, I have a possible stolen vehicle. Black male, mid-30s, driving a Rolls-Royce. Running the plates now." Marcus could hear everything through the open window. His jaw clenched. A minute passed, then two. Daniels returned, now with an even colder expression. "Step out of the vehicle." Marcus furrowed his brows. "Is there a problem, officer?" Daniel's hand hovered over his holster. "I said step out. Now." Marcus knew better than to argue. Slowly, he pushed open the door and stepped onto the pavement, the night air cool against his skin. Daniels grabbed his wrist, yanking him roughly toward the car. "Turn around." Hands on the hood. Marcus did as he was told, feeling the cold metal against his palms. A flashlight beam danced over him as Daniels patted him down, searching for something, anything, to justify the stop. "How does a guy like you afford a car like this?" Daniels muttered. Marcus remained silent. "Drug dealer? Scammer? Stolen identity?" Daniels scoffed. "Guys like you don't drive cars like this unless you're up to something." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. He had worked too hard, endured too much to be treated like this. Daniels pressed his radio again. "Dispatch, the registered owner of this vehicle is listed as Marcus Carter. I need confirmation on any criminal record." Static crackled. Then, "Negative. No priors. Clean record." Daniels frowned. He turned back to Marcus, studying him as if trying to make sense of the contradiction in front of him. A wealthy black man with no criminal history? Inconceivable. But Daniels wasn't ready to back down. Not yet. "Stand right there." He walked back to his cruiser, pulling out his phone. He searched for Marcus Carter. What he saw made his stomach drop. Marcus Carter wasn't just some random guy in a luxury car. He was Marcus Carter, CEO of Carter Global Enterprises, billionaire, philanthropist, owner of multiple businesses, including— Daniel's throat went dry, including Carter Auto Group, the very dealership where high-end vehicles were leased to law enforcement agencies, including the exact Rolls-Royce he had just pulled over. A cold chill ran down Daniel's spine. His heartbeat pounded in his ears as he turned back to Marcus, who was still standing with his hands on the hood. Daniel's grip on his holster loosened. He had made a massive mistake. But before he could say anything, another police cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. Two more officers stepped out. Daniels swallowed hard. They were his superiors, and from the looks on their faces, they already knew what was happening. Officer Daniels, one of them spoke, his voice tight. "We need to have a conversation." Marcus finally turned around, meeting Daniels' wide eyes with an expression that was unreadable. But then, Marcus reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a business card. He flicked it between his fingers before handing it to Daniels. Daniels hesitated, then took it. The card read, Marcus Carter, CEO, Carter Auto Group and Global Enterprises. Below that, in smaller text, supplier of official police fleet vehicles. Daniels felt the blood drain from his face. His career, over. But before he could even open his mouth, Marcus finally spoke. His voice was calm, measured, deadly. "You work for me." Silence. One of the senior officers exhaled sharply. "Daniels, go wait in your cruiser." Daniels hesitated, then turned stiffly and walked away. The senior officer turned back to Marcus, his face apologetic. "Mr. Carter, I sincerely apologize for this. We will handle it internally." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Oh, I know you will." His voice was even. "Because I will be handling it personally." Daniels, now back in his cruiser, slammed his fist against the steering wheel. He had pulled over the worst possible person. But Marcus wasn't done. Because he knew this wasn't just about him. It was about the thousands of others who had been stopped, humiliated, falsely accused, without the power to fight back. And this time, there would be consequences. Real ones. But just as Marcus was about to step back into his car, his phone buzzed. Private number. He answered. A distorted voice spoke on the other end. "You think you won this round, Mr. Carter?" The voice was calm, amused. Marcus froze. The senior officer noticed the shift in his expression. "Everything okay?" Marcus didn't respond, because suddenly something much bigger was at play. And he wasn't sure who had just called him, but he knew one thing. The game had only just begun. Marcus Carter stood frozen, the distorted voice lingering in his ear. "You think you won this round, Mr. Carter?" The amusement in the caller's tone sent a chill down his spine. Marcus had spent years building his empire, making powerful enemies along the way. But this was something different. He turned slightly, scanning his surroundings. The flashing red and blue lights, the senior officer watching him closely, Daniels sulking in his cruiser. Nothing seemed out of place. But Marcus knew better. "Who is this?" His voice was low, controlled. A chuckle. Then, "You'll find out soon enough. Just know." Tonight was a warning. Click. The line went dead. Marcus lowered the phone, his mind already racing. The senior officer stepped closer. "Mr. Carter, is everything all right?" Marcus forced a tight smile. "Yeah, just business." The officer nodded, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He knew Marcus was lying. But right now, Marcus had bigger problems. He slid into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel. The Rolls-Royce was supposed to be a symbol of his success, his power. But tonight it felt like a target. As he pulled away from the flashing lights, his thoughts swirled. Whoever called him knew exactly what had happened tonight. That meant they were watching. And that meant this wasn't over. The trap was already set. Marcus drove straight to his penthouse in the heart of the city. Security at the front entrance nodded as he entered, unaware of the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. Inside, he locked the door and sank into his chair, tapping into his private network. Within seconds, his encrypted system was running a trace on the last call. Blocked, encrypted, untraceable. Whoever this was, they weren't amateurs. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was someone he trusted. Ava Mitchell, former FBI, now head of his private security team. Marcus answered. "Talk to me." "Sir, we have a problem." Her voice was sharp, urgent. "Your security system flagged an attempted breach 5 minutes ago." Marcus sat up straight. "Where?" "Your office downtown. Someone tried accessing your personal files." Marcus clenched his jaw. First the cop, then the call. Now this. Someone was moving against him. Fast. "Do we have eyes on them?" he asked. Ava hesitated. "That's the thing. They didn't leave a trace. No cameras picked them up. It's like they were never there." Marcus exhaled slowly. A ghost. Or someone who knew exactly how to cover their tracks. The past always catches up. Marcus had made plenty of enemies over the years. Corrupt businessmen, politicians, even law enforcement. He had exposed them, taken them down, left them powerless. But some people never let go. His phone buzzed again. This time a text. Unknown number. A single image. Marcus' eyes narrowed. It was a picture of him. Tonight. Standing outside his car, hands on the hood with Officer Daniels behind him. Taken from the shadows. Someone had been there, watching, and they wanted him to know. Another text followed. "You should have stayed in your place." Marcus' pulse quickened. He wasn't afraid. No, fear wasn't the right word. He was angry. Someone thought they could intimidate him. Big mistake. The power shift. He dialed Ava. "I want eyes on every move Officer Daniels has made in the last 24 hours. Find out who he talks to, who he works for. Something about tonight doesn't add up." Ava didn't hesitate. "On it." Marcus hung up. Then he made another call. "Detective Rains." A gruff voice answered. "Carter, you don't usually call me this late. What's going on?" "I need to know who owns Officer Daniels." A pause. Then Rains exhaled. "Damn, you must have rattled the wrong cage." Marcus smirked. "Wouldn't be the first time." Rains hesitated. "Look, I'll dig. But if Daniels is tied to who I think he is, you're playing with fire." Marcus' jaw tightened. "Then I'll burn them first." Silence. Then Rains sighed. "I'll call you when I have something." Marcus ended the call. His mind was already working ahead. He needed to get in front of this. Fast. Whoever was behind this thought they could make him a victim. They had no idea who they were dealing with. But then, another text. A video this time. Marcus opened it. The footage was grainy but clear enough. A man, hooded, standing in his office. His private office. The camera angle shifted. And then, the man turned, just enough for Marcus to see a glimpse of his face. It wasn't just any face. It was someone he hadn't seen in years. Someone who was supposed to be dead. Marcus' breath hitched. This wasn't just some random threat. This was personal. And now, it was war. The video kept playing. Marcus Carter stood frozen, his grip tightening around his phone. The security footage showed a hooded man breaking into his office, moving with precision. He wasn't just looking for something. He knew what he was after. Then, as the intruder turned slightly, the dim light caught his face. Marcus' breath hitched. Jamal Kingston, a name from his past. A ghost he had buried long ago. Years ago, Marcus and Jamal had been inseparable. Two kids from the same streets, surviving together. But where Marcus had walked away from that life, Jamal had gone deeper, aligning himself with powerful and dangerous people. Then, 3 years ago, he vanished. Some said he was dead. Others whispered that he had gone underground. And now, here he was, breaking into Marcus' office. Marcus read the message again. "You should have stayed in your place." This wasn't about Daniels. This was personal. The setup. Marcus left his office, his mind racing. Jamal wasn't just some ghost from his past. If he was back, that meant he had a plan. And Marcus was right in the middle of it. Pulling up to a dark parking garage, Marcus spotted the man he had summoned, Officer Daniels. The same cop who had pulled him over. Daniels stood there, shifting nervously, his eyes darting around. He looked like a man drowning in his own guilt. Marcus stepped out of his car and approached him. "You work for him," Marcus said, his voice calm but sharp. Daniels flinched. "I don't know what you're talking about." Marcus grabbed him by the collar, his patience gone. "Jamal sent you. Tell me why." Daniels swallowed hard, panic in his eyes. I didn't have a choice. He owns people, Carter. Cops, judges, businessmen. You don't say no to him." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "And what does he want with me?" Daniels hesitated, then exhaled shakily. "He's been planning this for years. He knew you'd rise in power, and he let it happen. But now—" Daniels licked his lips. "Now he's making his move, and you're in his way." Marcus let go, taking a step back. Jamal had been watching, waiting, and now the game had begun. The showdown. Back at his penthouse, another message was waiting. An address. No threats. No demands. Just an invitation. Jamal was done hiding. Marcus exhaled slowly, slipping his gun into his holster. He wasn't walking into a trap unarmed. Driving through the city, he arrived at a secluded warehouse on the outskirts of town. Dim lights flickered above, casting long shadows. He stepped inside. A single chair sat in the middle of the vast, empty space. And behind it, Jamal Kingston, older, sharper, but still carrying that same dangerous grin. "Been a long time, Marcus," Jamal said, arms spread wide. "Look at you, all suited up. A real boss now." Marcus kept his stance firm. "You should have stayed gone, Jamal." Jamal chuckled. "I could say the same about you. Walking around, pretending you're different. That you're better than the streets that raised you." His eyes darkened. "But we both know the truth. No matter how high you climb, you'll always be one of us." Marcus clenched his jaw. "What do you want?" Jamal stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I want what's mine." He pulled a folder from his pocket and tossed it onto the chair. Marcus picked it up. Inside were documents, ownership papers, business holdings, stocks, all tied to him. Jamal smirked. "You built your empire, Marcus, but you did it on my turf. And now, I'm here to collect." Marcus shook his head. "I owe you nothing." Jamal's grin faded. "You owe me everything." The tension crackled like static in the air. Then, Jamal nodded toward the shadows. Footsteps echoed. Armed men stepped forward, guns drawn. Marcus didn't flinch. "You really think this ends with me handing over my empire?" Marcus said, his voice low, dangerous. Jamal sighed. "I was hoping you'd see reason." Then, boom, the warehouse door burst open. FBI SWAT stormed in. Jamal's men hesitated, their confidence crumbling. Jamal's eyes widened. "What?" Marcus smirked. "Did you really think I came alone?" Eva, his assistant, his real right hand. She had been tracking Jamal the moment Marcus made that call. And now, the game was over. Within seconds, Jamal was on his knees, guns pointed at his head. He looked up at Marcus, eyes burning with betrayal. "You played me," he muttered. Marcus knelt down, meeting his gaze. "No, Jamal. You played yourself." The agents dragged Jamal away, his empire crumbling before his eyes. Daniels was next, arrested, disgraced. And Marcus? He walked out of that warehouse untouched. Because power wasn't about who was feared. It was about who was smartest.